we're going to get started in just a little bit. If you want to go ahead and turn over in your Bibles to the book of Ruth, we'll get over there in just a moment. You can keep visiting for just a little bit. I know people come in a little bit late, and we are live streaming here, so there'll be some people that'll join us here in just a moment anyway.
Did you say I was late?
Oh, yeah. Now that Miss Denise is here, we can get started.
You're not going to announce that for her, though, are you?
Oh, no, not at all.
I didn't think so.
We'll keep it just between us and everybody else that's on the World Wide Web. Oh, goodness gracious.
Might as well have some fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was going to check and make sure we are able to stream here.
That'd be pretty.
Here you go.
She said, well, she's thinking sometime in the afternoon.
Yeah, that would be good.
And she said,
Come in a little bit late. There you go.
And we are live streaming here, so there'll be...
I told you we were live streaming. It works.
It's pretty profit.
Yeah, and you can see that there's about a 30-second delay between what you say
Yeah.
and what is actually broadcast.
she's thinking asking him
Yes. Yeah, that would be better.
Let me show y'all something that I've got right now that I think is pretty cool. So I've been looking for a specific Bible. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post, but this was several weeks ago. I was looking for a specific Bible. It's an American Standard from 1901. It's done by Star Publications out of Fort Worth, Texas. And it's just a New Testament. And it's a real special one because it has charts and really neat things in the back of it. And it's fantastic to use for evangelism. It's a wonderful translation. The American Standard from 1901 is actually out of print. You know, the New American Standard came out, I think that one was published in 1977. They revised it in 1995. And then they revised it again in 2020, the NASB 2020. Yeah. And it's a good translation. I actually have it. A lot of it doesn't change. It keeps a lot of the same ideas about how to translate. They do it word for word. You know, they take one word and they just translate that one word in the original Greek and trying to keep it as close as possible to the way that the original Greek even arranged the words. Sometimes translations will take it and they'll rearrange the words so that it makes sense in English. You know, that's why the New American Standard is actually on an 11th grade reading level, and it can sound more choppy when reading it than the New Americans or than the NIV or even King James. So it's very, very literal. The American Standard took that approach, and the New American Standard has done the same thing. The NASB 2020 did some things like anything that would have been like if it would have said men, but it was inclusive of women, then it would just say men and women, translated that way. So a lot of times when a passage that says, so all men will know that you are my disciples. Well, he's not talking about only the gender of males should know that that they're Jesus' disciples. He's including females. Yeah. So they took that and said, since it's the original language it indicates that it's gender neutral, then let's translate it that way. So they actually translate in the English so that all men and women would know that you are my disciples. And I appreciate that. Because there are times, though, that the Greek indicates that this is males and this is females, and they've kept that. but there are times that it's done the other way. So that's really helpful. And honestly, I haven't seen, there's just a few verses that are done that way, but I appreciate that kind of update to the New American Standard the NASB 2020. So the 1901 version of this sounds a little bit more archaic. It has kept some of the language that was found in the King James and New King James. However, it is, again, very, very literal. But this specific Bible, this New Testament Bible I was looking for, very special to me. I actually got it when I was a teenager because I brought the most people to VBS, like when I was 12 or 13 years old. And so the church bought us these Bibles. And I've loved it. And I started doing devotionals and preaching out of this Bible. Well, over the years, I have no idea what happened to it. You know, I honestly, my brother has one as well, but I think my mom has his copy. So anyway, I was looking for it to just replace it, and I put out a thing that said, hey, if you've got an extra one of these Bibles, I would love it, you know. Well, I found a preacher friend of mine. His name is Wayne Roberts. Wayne is a longtime friend of mine, and I think he's moving somewhere, like I want to say Houston, Texas right now. But him and Tammy, get this, are you ready for this one? Tammy is distantly related to Mary Garner, and I didn't know this till a while back, which probably everybody is distantly related to Mary Garner in some way. But anyway, you are, there you go. So you are related to this person that I'm talking about in some way or another. Okay, you're all family. So anyway, Wayne and Tammy are going to be on this marriage cruise that is going to happen in January that we're going on with Trey and Lee Morgan. So it's a seminar at sea, marriage seminar at sea. But anyway, Wayne contacted me and said, I think my dad had several of these Bibles, and I may have an extra one, and that I can send to you. And lo and behold, Mr. Wayne Roberts sent me his dad's New American Standard 1901 Star Bible, New Testament, and it actually has his dad's name on it. And so I appreciate that. So that's really, really special. It's got some of his dad's notes, like handwritten notes inside of it. I guess it's him. It's either Mr. Emmett Roberts or Wayne that has written in this. But anyway, it's fantastic. And I'll show you just a few little things about what I like about this Bible at the very back of it. There's some just really neat things in the back that just give you charts. You know, they're just really, really helpful. And they are done. This was done by Wayne Jackson. It actually says at the very beginning of it, this is the Evangelism edition with notes and references on every page by Wayne Jackson. And so the back of it has great charts that can be used, talking about temporary spiritual gifts, the New Testament church, from the founder, where it was founded, when it was founded, and who the head is. God's pattern in music and in worship, how to become a Christian, and I love this one, how to set up a New Testament church in your home. I love that. So imagine if you were to take this to the foreign lands and be able to use that to start a church, you know, where there's no church. That's really what happens a lot of times, is churches are just started in someone's home. So I love that aspect of it. Even down to, you should get someone to baptize you today. You know, so it's just great stuff. I've used this when I was a kid. I taught some of my, and then even like how to make unleavened bread, you know, and about like a little thing about how grape juice, this is what it says. Grape juice can be purchased in many areas of the world, but if it's not readily obtainable, it can be produced by simply squeezing the juice from the grapes into a container. A supply of grape juice can be produced during the grape season, which may last all year. I just love that aspect of it, just so simple and easy. Then how is the church organized? It's just a great little evangelistic tool. But good version of the Bible. It's very, very small print. I mean, this is not for somebody that really struggles with that, but it's really, really a good Bible to use. And I'll read just a little bit to you the way it reads. So this is the American Standard from 1901, and I'll read a verse to you that you're very familiar with from Acts chapter 2, and starting in verse 37. It says, "Now when they heard this, they were pricked in their heart." That's King James. Okay, that's pricked in their heart. It sounds King James, doesn't it? And he said unto Peter and the rest of the apostles, "Brethren, what shall we do?" And Peter said unto them, "Repent ye. Okay, so the New American Standard took out the ye's and the thous and the these and replaced them with more modern language, right? So it says, "Repent ye and be baptized every one of you in the name of Jesus Christ unto the remission of your sins, and ye shall receive the gift of the Holy Spirit." But anyway, I love this version. I love this Bible. So I'm super excited to be able to use it. And this is one of my favorite parts. Are you ready for this? It fits perfectly right there in the front pocket. So I love that. I remember those old preachers, they had that. They would use that, and they would preach from these things. And maybe I'll do the same thing. It is small print, so if I am preaching, it maybe ended up like that. But anyway, I'm really excited about being able to use this all again. Yes, sir. Oh, you have no idea? Well, let me just tell you again. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking, everybody. I'm joking. Oh, it's the American Standard. It's called a Star Bible. It actually has a small little star at the front of it by Star Publications. And it's just a good little Bible to use. It's the evangelism edition is what it is. But anyway, really neat stuff. Okay, so let's go over to the book of Ruth. I know I spent a little bit of time doing that, but I was just so excited about it, and this is the first Sunday. I got it in the mail Friday, so I wanted to give a shout out to Wayne as well for being so good to me. Okay, so we are in the book of Ruth. Here's what we talked about last week. We introduced the book, talked a little bit about the theme of the book, and I hope that you caught on to the fact that this book is about a restoration. That it starts off when we leave the book of Judges, where there is no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And by the time that we get to the book of Ruth, we flip the page over, and we start seeing hope for that. If you remember, Elimelech's name means God is king. And so that's really powerful. And then by the time that you get to the very end of the book of Ruth, the very last part of it gives you a genealogy of Ruth's family, of Naomi's family, and it leads right up to David, King David, who is not the first king in Israel, but was one of the best kings, honestly. Saul was the first one, but God doesn't look at the outward appearance. God looks at the heart. We learned that. That's a whole other lesson about David. But it leads up to that aspect of the genealogy of even Jesus. And so when we go over to Matthew chapter 2 and read about that, or Matthew chapter 1 and read about the genealogy of Jesus, then we can pull all that back from what we remembered in studying the book of Ruth. Remember, the key word that I mentioned is this return, or to come back, or gone back, and that is that Hebrew word shub, and how that is a story of restoration. That word is littered all throughout chapter 1, but then is found throughout the book all the way down to the very last chapter in verse 15, where it says, "May he also be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons has given birth to him." So talking about Ruth and Boaz's son, which his name is Obed, is that restorer. He's giving them some hope. But we got to get to that point. And so let's continue on reading this story. We talked about how what she lost was very, very difficult. She lost her husband, lost her 2 sons. Very, very difficult time in her life. Her heart was just crumbled. There are 2 different occasions where she sits there with her 2 daughters-in-law and they just weep. They cry together. And so they're brokenhearted completely. We learned a little bit about how Orpah, she decides not to stay with Naomi. She wants to go back to her home, her father's house, and she heads that direction, which also indicates that she's going to go back to serving the gods that her fathers served. But Ruth made a different choice. Ruth says, I'm going to stay with you. Where you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. And so that's the kind of choice that she makes. And so that influences her and the rest of her life, and even generations, that decision that she makes. Now, what is interesting to me is you think about small decisions that you make in your life, and you think, well, this is just no big deal. And I'm not talking about where we're going to eat lunch later on after church. I'm talking about small little things that you say, well, I think I'll do this, or I'll do that, and I don't know if it's going to make a difference in my life. Well, then you have on the flip side of that, large decisions that you make that at the time you may not even realize are such a large decision, but how it impacts other people can be multiplied. I think I've told you guys before, I know I've mentioned it from the pulpit, decisions that somebody else made about where they were going to school influenced me about where I was going to go to school, which then influenced me on who I was marrying. I met Kira because I chose to go to this school. And so someone else's decision to do something influenced me to do something, and then the rest of my life has changed because of a decision that they made. So here is Ruth making this decision to stay with Naomi, and it impacts not only her life, but lives in the future. Impacts Boaz's life. Obed exists because of this decision that she makes. So you think about in your life how important it is to stop and make good decisions, for one thing. Don't be too rash to decide something. There's nothing wrong with taking a little bit of time and saying, how is this going to impact me and then impact others that I don't even know yet? And so when you have that kind of mentality, I think it's easier to make better decisions. I remember as a teenager, I'd always think, I don't want to be caught with the wrong crowd or in the wrong place. Not just because I don't know how I would handle it, but I don't want to disappoint my mom and my dad. I don't want to disappoint my grandparents. I can't imagine having to tell my grandfather, listen, I was with these people and they were drinking or they were smoking pot, and because of that, here I am. I wasn't doing this myself, but this is what happened. And now, I didn't want to put myself in that situation where I had to explain away something. And so being constantly aware of decisions that you make help you in the future make better decisions. So there's nothing wrong with taking that little bit of time and seeing how will this decision impact somebody else. I know of families where the daughter made a decision early in her teenage life, and it just spiraled into other bad decisions. And because of that, her parents just were never the same once those decisions were made. From depression to financial stress, they just were never the same because of the decision that she made. At the same time, while we're talking about negative decisions that you may make, there are great positive decisions that you can make that will influence people forever. And that is the story that we find right here with the story of Ruth and Naomi. So she makes a decision, a positive one, where your people will be my people, your God will be my God. Where you go, I will go. And she keeps that commitment to her. So that's pretty powerful. This morning, I want us to look at, continue on in chapter 1, verses 19 through 22, and then I think we'll finish this little section up and we'll get right into the next section, probably chapter 3 a little bit as well. I hope anyway. We'll see what happens. Okay, so chapter 1, verse 19 through 22. Let's read this together. It says, So they both went until they came to Bethlehem, and when they had come to Bethlehem, all the city was stirred because of them. And the women said, Is this Naomi? She said to them, Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, but the Lord has brought me back. There's our key word. That's that shud word from the Hebrew. Brought me back, restored me, brought me back empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has witnessed against me and the Almighty has afflicted me? So Naomi returned. There's that word again, shud. With her and with her Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, who returned. There it is again, from the land of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Okay, so a couple of things that we want to kind of work through here. All right, so they're heading back into Bethlehem, where Naomi is from. And when Naomi and Ruth make it back to Bethlehem, the town's women, first of all, causes a big, to-do or whatever in town, right? That's what it says. The city was stirred up because of them. Bethlehem has never really been that big of a city at all. And even now, it's not that big of a city. But, here they come into this small town of Bethlehem. Oh, little town of Bethlehem. We know that, right? They come to this little town of Bethlehem, and the whole city is stirred up because of them. And the town's women say, can this be Naomi? So I don't know. A lot of things could be unpacked right there. Why are they questioning that? Well, I don't know exactly how much time has passed by. I know that 10 years went by for sure. So perhaps her appearance even changed. I know this, when someone goes through such turmoil in their life, sometimes their physical appearance can change. I've seen people, when they're going through deep grief, it's almost like you can just see the weight and the burden written all over their face. You've probably seen that. You may be experiencing that right now. Well, I don't know if that's why they said, is this Naomi? I don't know. She could have that downcast face all over her. She may have gained weight. She may have lost weight. Those two things can happen a lot of times when someone goes through grief. Sometimes people gain weight because of grief. We have a tendency when someone is grieving to bring as much food as we possibly can to them. And let me tell you, that does feel good. And I don't mean to make fun of that, but I remember when my grandfather died, we were all at my grandparents' house, and the church and people kept bringing so much food and pie and more pie, and I love pie. And so, before too long, you think, man, I feel better. It's an emotional thing. And we make fun of people like that a lot of times because we'll say, man, I'm feeling so depressed. I'm going to go to just eat ice cream right out of the carton, just to make me it feels better. And that happens. I don't know if you ever watched like My 600-Pound Life or anything. A lot of times someone goes through something so traumatic in their life and they turn to food, and that's one of the reasons why they've gained so much weight. That happens. The opposite effect can also happen. Sometimes someone goes through such turmoil and they stop eating. They just don't have an appetite at all, and they lose so much weight, and they don't even look healthy, and before too long they just look like the skin that has just been wrapped around bones, just a skeleton sitting there before you. Sometimes that's the response when someone goes through grief, and you never know how you're going to respond to it. You never know how. Well, I know how I would eat the pie. But, I never know. You never know how somebody else is going to respond to it or anything like that. And that's something to be aware of. I don't know why they said, is this Naomi? I don't know why. Whether she just looked different, maybe just because she aged, or the stresses of grief changed even her outward appearance so much. Maybe that's the case. But I sympathize with her. And I can understand why maybe they asked that and questioned, is this Naomi? Now, her response is really interesting. When Naomi responds, she says, "Don't call me Naomi." Now, the name Naomi, I think I mentioned this last week, means pleasant. Pleasant. She says, "Don't call me Naomi." She said, "Call me Mara." Because, and here's what it says, verse 20 and 21. "Call me Mara because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So, she may have been trying to communicate to these ladies that her family was perhaps being punished for having moved to Moab. She says, "Don't call me pleasant. Call me Mara," but Mara means bitter. So she may be feeling bitter. And sometimes we just feel bitter. Things happen to us and we just feel bitter towards the rest of the world. I can understand. And even cynical and bitter, they're close relatives. And maybe that's why the way that she's feeling. Don't call me I'm not pleasant. Nothing about my life has been pleasant. Don't even call me that. Don't call me by the name that I've always been known from. Call me Mara. I'll just change my name because the way I'm feeling right now is more bitter than pleasant. I don't know. Maybe I'm adding too much into that. I feel like that's really the conversation that she has with them. Just call me bitter. Because what's happened to us has been so terrible. And it's interesting, though, because she basically says, the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. Then again, at the very end of verse 21, the Almighty has afflicted me. She, I think, is even passing blame over on God, the Almighty, for what's going on in her life. And that is a very, very natural response for somebody who believes in God and goes through something so terrible. People will say, "God, why is God doing this to me? Why is God doing this? What have I done? What have I done where God is causing this to happen to me in my life?" It's a very natural response. It seems that that's the direction that Naomi has gone. I don't think it's the right way to do it. I'm not saying that. Well, let me say this. If I'm counseling somebody and they say, "God has done this to me," I will try to steer them away from that. Okay? I want to steer them away from placing blame upon God. God doesn't cause bad things to happen. God does allow things that are bad to happen to us, but God doesn't say, "Oh, good, now I'm going to make this terrible thing happen to you." No. Here's what happens. Man sins. Satan let me back up. Satan introduces sin. Man falls for it. Man has to deal with the consequences. And that's why there's evil in the world. That's why there's bad things that happen to people. It's really our own fault because we're evil people. And Satan is the father of lies. He is the embodiment of wickedness. And when he presents that to us and we fall for it, bad things happen. God wants to actually keep us protected. He wants to keep us in the garden where we don't ever have to worry about that. He'll take care of us completely. He wants to protect us and give us a place where it's just all pleasant and not bitter. But instead, bad things happen because sin is in the world. Well, that's the case here with Naomi. But I did not say that Naomi sinned or her husband sinned or any of her sons sinned. I'm just saying because there's evil in the world, bad things happen to people. Bad things happen to good people. We just studied the book of Job a little over a year ago dealing with that very thing. Job is a righteous man. Job, the whole point of the book is Job says, "I can't figure out what I have done wrong." Because the construct of the time was, if things are good in your life, then you must be doing good things. If things are bad in your life, then you must have done bad things. But that was a false construct that was in the minds of the people at the time of Job. So here Naomi says, the Almighty has dealt bitterly with us, so just call me bitter. We've dealt with these terrible things in our lives, so that, call me bitter because the Lord has afflicted us. So that's an important thing to unpack just a little bit. While I say that that's not the right response, I can understand that response. I know why that we do that. And I know that people, even today, will suffer through that kind of philosophy of dealing with grief. Why is God doing these things to me? But that's not the way it works. So, that's what we want to unpack in these few verses right here. Sometimes we feel bitter when we're going through a tough time. Returning to her hometown, she felt less than empty and bitter for what had happened to her. Notice that she says, we left full. Think about her life. She's got a great husband. She's got 2 sons. We're in the middle of a famine, but we've got a plan, and we're going to go execute this plan. We're going to go get food. We're going to have a great life. And everything falls apart. So when she leaves Bethlehem, she goes away full. When she comes back, he's brought me back empty. We don't have anything. We're empty. And literally and physically, they are empty. They're empty of those things. They have no way of making money. With being a widow and then another widow together, these ladies have no way of no one's taking care of them. That sets the stage for the rest of the book. No one is there to take care of these ladies. And so that the answer will be found as she returns back home. So let me ask you this, and you can answer this if you want to. Don't feel like you have to. But have you ever felt bitter because of bad things happened in your life? I think you have. And if you have, and you want to share those things, you certainly can. But sometimes it's hard to do that. It's hard to bring those things all back up again. Bitter and being mad at God for what we may feel is like a ruined life. Well, you're not alone. And like I said, Job dealt with this very thing. In Job 23, starting verse 1, it says, Then Job replied, Even today my complaint is bitter. His hand is heavy in spite of my groaning. So Job understood that bitterness that Naomi is certainly going through, and that you may be going through as well. But there is a way out of that bitterness, a way out of it. And let's look at that right now. All right? So when times are tough, I say get to work. That's what I say. That's my solution. When people come to me for counseling, I don't, and maybe, I'm working right now on getting a certification in counseling, so maybe I'll learn better later on. But right now, sometimes the best advice that I can give to somebody is you need to get busy. You need to get busy. You need to be working. Work is the answer. My grandfather would say, are you hungry? Work. Are you broke? Work. Are you happy? Work. Are you stressed? Work. Are you depressed? Work. Work is the answer. It always is, I'm telling you. All through, I don't know anything else but work. I really don't. And I love it. I love work. I love work. I love doing what I do for, I hate to make it sound like this, but, ministry is my way of life. It's my career, if you will, okay? It's my job, okay? And I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. And I love it so much, I would do it for free. Don't tell the elders. I would do it for free. If I could figure out a way to take care of my family, I would still do this absolutely with no monetary return at all. Matter of fact, if there's ever a time that I don't do this for a living, I'm just going to keep working and serving the Lord's church. And that's what I would expect anybody to do. Just keep working and keep studying, keep praying, keep evangelizing and saving people's soul. Just keep going. I love that. Now, I like that kind of work. That's my way of life. Me and Kira were talking just yesterday. She said, with her job, she works for the government. And she can go to work. She gets at work at 7 o'clock, and she works till 4:30 every single day. But then every other Friday she has off. They work those 10-hour days, okay? So, fantastic job. But when she gets there, she starts working, and when she leaves, she can just shut it off and never takes it home with her. Never. That's a great situation. It really is. And we were talking yesterday. I don't have that pleasure. I'm okay with it, but because of the nature of my job, and you may have a job like this too. Teachers are very much the same way. You don't get to just say, okay, I'm going to go put in my time and then that's it. You're always thinking. You're always trying to figure out something. You're always getting a phone call or a text. It doesn't matter. And I love that way of life. Okay, so that's just the way it is. But I also love work from the aspect of just the physical labor of it. I feel like I'm always finding something to do around the house. I never can just be still. I have to train myself. Okay, listen, Alex, you can just sit and watch a movie. I have to make myself do that kind of thing because I'm always thinking about what I want to do and just get busy. But I remember as a kid, I think my parents were, it was not like 1983 when my parents and it was just me and my mom and dad, moved to Russellville, Arkansas. My dad started working for Rideout in 1977. And they opened up the Rideout store. That's a lumber company, if you're not familiar with Rideout Lumber Company. They opened a Rideout store in Russellville in 1983, and my parents moved there. My dad helped open that store up. So my parents, they built a house in Russellville on Crow Mountain. I don't know if anybody knows where Crow Mountain. You go all the way up to the top of this thing. Beautiful houses up there. My dad built a house up there, and the whole lot had to be cleared. And I can still remember this in my mind at 3 years old. The whole lot had to be cleared. My dad got a bulldozer and pulled down trees, but all these rocks were there. And I remember as a 3-year-old, we just moved rock, and it just felt like we were stacking rock and stacking rock and stacking rock. And my parents were like, he's picking up rocks that are twice his size, And I would pick up these rocks, and we would just stack them up. We made a rock wall. That rock wall, I hadn't been back to that old house in years. Last time I was there, 25 years later or whatever, that rock wall is still there. That's what work does for you. It feels good. At 3 years old, I remember stacking those rocks, and here it is. It feels good when you look back on a job done. You just have this sense of great accomplishment, and it boosts the way you feel about yourself and about something that you've done. So when you are hungry and you need money to be able to provide for you and your family, work is the answer. Broke, work. If you're happy, go out and work. That's when you can get some of the greatest work done. When you're stressed or depressed, work makes you feel better because at the end of the day, you look back at the job you've done and it's better. Well, work was exactly what Ruth decided to do. Look at chapter 2, verse 2. Verse 1. It says, Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a man of great wealth, of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. So listen now, she's going back to her in-laws. So Naomi had a kinsman of her husband. So it's her husband's family, a man of great wealth in the family of Elimelech. That's her husband, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, Please let me go to the field and work and glean among the ears of grain after one in whose sight I might find favor. And she says to her, Go, my daughter. And she departed and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. I love this aspect right here. Let me go to the fields and get to work. Now, it doesn't say work right there, but we understand that's work, right? She's good. She says, let me get out there and get busy. Maybe I can earn something here. So she's new in town, new people, and she wanted to take care of Naomi and herself, and so she decided to glean in a nearby field. and follow the harvesters. Her work ethic did not go unnoticed at all, and she worked hard and it paid off. Keep reading with me just a little bit, starting in verse 4. We're going to read through verse 18 and just get this whole thing done real quick. So it says, "Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, 'May the Lord be with you.' And they said to him, 'May the Lord bless you.' Then Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, 'Whose young woman is this?' The servant in charge of the reapers replied, 'She is a young Moabite woman who returned,'— there's our word, shud— "returned with Naomi from the land of Moab. And she said, 'Please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves.' Thus she came and has remained from the morning until now. She has been sitting in the house for a little while." Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen carefully, my daughter. Do not go glean in another field. Furthermore, do not go on from this one, but stay here with my maids. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Indeed, I've commanded the servants not to touch you. When you are thirsty, go to the water jars and drink from what the servants draw." Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your sight that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" Boaz replied to her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law," this is the key verse. Key verse. If you want to underline a verse in Ruth, this is a good one to do. "All that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me, how you left your father and your mother in the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know. May the Lord reward your work and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge." And she said, "I have found favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me and indeed have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants." At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come here that you may eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar." Okay, that doesn't sound very appetizing, but whatever. So she sat beside the reapers, and he served her roasted grain, and she ate and was satisfied and had some left. When she rose to glean, Boaz commanded his servants, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not insult her. Also you shall purposely pull her out for her some grain from the bundles, and leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her." So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out and she gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. She took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also took it out and gave Naomi what she had left after she was satisfied. Okay, so I know it's a lengthy reading, but I just want you to notice the work ethic that she has. That work can get us out of a slump. When Boaz asks his foreman about Ruth, he's told that even though she was not by law required to do, she had courteously asked to glean in his fields. And so she worked all the day with very few breaks. Verse 7. Boaz first addresses Ruth directly in verse 8 when he insists that she glean only in his field. I think he liked her right then. Love at first sight. I don't know. "Glean only in my field," is what he says, with his personal guarantee of protection from the young men in the fields, and to offer for her to drink in the vessels provided for his own workers, along with eating with them at meal breaks. Ruth's inquiry of Boaz in verse 10 regarding the reason for his favorable treatment of her is met with an appreciation toward her because of the way that she chose to care for her mother-in-law. There's a lot of jokes out there about mother-in-laws and even father-in-laws, right? And we touched on this just a little bit last week, but I just want to encourage you to have a good relationship with your in-laws. Have a good relationship with them. If it's strained right now, work on it. Get it right. Take care of them. I've known people that they have taken such good care of their in-laws that even after their spouse dies, they just take the time to take care of the parent still, no matter what. Well, that's what got Boaz's attention about Naomi, or about Ruth, to take care of her because she was willing to take care of her mother-in-law. And that's amazing to me. But I wanted to just show you this. I wanted to see, here's this grief. Remember we started, she comes back and she says, don't call me pleasant, call me bitter. And what got her out of that slump was the work that she was willing to do. Work hard.